CTIGP counselor, Ms. Dan Luo, will share cross-cultural transitions and prevention of sexual harassment. Welcome, Ms. Luo.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right. Well, my name is Dan Luo, and I'm one of the counselors from the Academia Sinica Counseling Center. And today I will be talking about mental health in your PhD. And I'll be covering 3 areas in the next about 30 minutes. And the first part is managing your mental health during your PhD program, including why it is important to talk about it and what you can expect during your PhD journey. And the second part is when to seek help and where to find mental health resources. And last but not least, I'll spend a little time talking about sexual harassment prevention at Academia Sinica. But before I start, I would like to have a quick survey. And I would like to invite you to use your cameras by turning it on and or off. So the question is, do you think it's important to talk about mental health? If you think it's important to you, please turn on your camera. And if you don't think it's important, you can turn it off or keep it off. And there's no right or wrong answer, okay? I just wanted to get a quick sense of what everyone thinks. So please answer by turning on or off your camera. Take a look. Wow, I'm seeing some friendly faces here. Okay, so quite a large number of you are turning on your cameras. And thank you for your responses. All right, and okay, now I will start my part. And if you like to turn off your cameras now, you can do that, and just to ensure that our online meeting runs smoothly. Thank you for your responses. And hold on a second, just let me bring up my slides. And I'm going to tell you in a second why I think it's important to talk about mental health in your graduate studies. All right, let's jump to why it's important to talk about mental health. Actually, in the past few years, there has been some studies that indicate that there is a growing mental health concern among PhD students. Or just to give you a couple examples. The first one is a study conducted in Belgium in 2017, and they found that 1 in 2 PhD students experience psychological distress, and 1 in 3 is at risk of a common psychiatric disorder. And they also compared this population with other groups and found that the prevalence of mental health problems is higher in PhD students than in the highly educated general population. All right, the second study was done in 2019, and they found over 1/3 of respondents had sought help for anxiety or depression related to their PhD studies. And did you know that there is even a conference called the International Conference on the Mental Health and Well-Being of Postgraduate Researchers to address this concern? And they've had 2 conferences so far. One was back in 2019, it was held in UK. And the second one was earlier this year, back in May, it was online. So as we can see, there is growing mental health concern in graduate education, and it is important to address this issue. But why are PhD students susceptible to mental health issues? Perhaps we can start by looking at the difference between expectation and reality. And I would like to invite you to also think about what your expectations are during your PhD studies. And if you know what you get yourself into when you decided to enroll in the program. Well, let's take a look at this comic here, right? The upper one shows one's expectation or one's plan on taking the PhD program. Well, it's like a journey, right? From point A to point B, and getting your degree is the destination. So you just go with it. However, the reality looks more like the lower one. It looks more like this, like you're going to encounter various challenges and difficulties, and you're going to have to learn different skills, removing roadblocks and under various pressures. And sometimes you may have self-doubt on whether you have made the right choice getting into the program. Now, so if you have, if you are clear on the motivation on why you're getting into the program and have a more real expectation on what you may encounter, then when you're faced with challenges, you're more likely to deal with it in a more effective way. So I'm going to show you some of the common concerns our former students have dealt with. Now, what you're seeing is part of the counseling statistics in the year of 2020. Well, I'm presenting the top 5 most common concerns our PhD students sought out counseling for. Well, you can see both stress management and mentorship are top concerns, each accounting for 17% of the students who came in for counseling. And the following 3 concerns, which accounted for 9%, are psychological disorder, interpersonal relationship, and family relationship. So it is likely that some of you may also come across such challenges. So it can be helpful to be aware of what they may look like and what you can do to prevent or cope with such situations. So I'm going to present the following 5 areas. They are cultural adaptation, interpersonal relationships, mentorship, work-life balance, and self-doubt. I'm going to talk about each area individually. So the first one is cultural adaptation. Well, as you know, a large percentage of our PhD students are international students. Well, some of you may have the experience of living abroad, but for some, this may be your first time living in a foreign country. Well, it can be quite exciting, meeting new people and having new experiences, but at the same time, it could also be overwhelming with unfamiliar culture and different way of life. Let's take a look at this comic, right? Let's take eating as an example. While this comic may be of an exaggeration, but in fact, in many of the local restaurants in Taipei, chopsticks are what you get. I see someone laughing, right? But sometimes you might get spoons. So basically, you're bound to experience some level of culture shock with unfamiliar greetings, strange food, having language barriers, and not used to the weather here, and so on. This may lead to feelings of frustration, loneliness, and homesickness. And you may start missing friends and family back home, and may experience minor health issues as a result of the transition. Well, fortunately, many of our students are able to adjust as life gradually gets better and when routine sets in. Well, here are some ways to deal with culture shock and help you to adapt. Well, the first one is to take your own time, right? Remind yourself it is normal to have difficulties living in a foreign country, and sooner or later, you will feel better. Next is to keep an open mind, welcome the new experiences as they arise, and participate in social activities, explore the new city, and discover the new culture and traditions. Also, build up a new support network for yourself is very important. Make new friends, especially with your classmates, your lab mates, your roommates, with local or fellow international students, because doing research can sometimes be very isolating. So being friends with other PhD students or your colleagues can make the situation better. Okay, next, let's take a look at interpersonal relationships. Well, we just talked about making new friends, right? And how could this be a concern? Well, as we all have different cultural backgrounds, cultural differences can increase the likelihood of misunderstanding. Or for example, as this comic shows, well, people from different cultures show disagreement differently, or behavior in areas such as leadership, communication, and feedback styles can vary across cultures. While it is important to be sensitive to cultural differences, and it's equally important to avoid overgeneralization and stereotyping. After all, even people from the same cultural background can experience interpersonal relationship concerns as well. So I'm presenting some suggestions on building and maintaining interpersonal relationships, and they are applicable to both international students and our local Taiwanese students. So the first one is very basic, be friendly, right? Basically, you can smile and say hello and remind yourself that building good relationships requires effort. For example, you can make an intentional effort to remember someone's name with the correct pronunciation. It just shows that you care. And show respect as well. Treat people as individuals and avoid judging them because of their looks, their actions, or their origin. And don't rush yourself as well. You may not experience an immediate bond because building trust and developing relationships do take time. And second, promote cultural understanding by sharing your own culture and learning others' cultures as well. I think this is particularly valuable to our Taiwanese students because you get to stay in the comfort of your own home, yet have the opportunity to have an international experience. While making friends from different cultures help you see the world through different lenses or see different approaches to solving one problem and become more open-minded. I think it's really beneficial. And also practice active listening helps. It's a very effective strategy for communication. Active listening means restating or summarizing what the other person has said and ensure that you have understood them correctly and ask frequent questions to verify. So this helps build rapport and ensures that important information doesn't get missed or misunderstood. All right, let's take a look at next area on mentorship. Well, mentorship refers to your relationship with your supervisor. It is a vital part of your PhD study, your study process. Well, as with many relationships, it will vary depending on the working styles and personalities on both sides. And sometimes it will have mismatched expectations and misunderstanding. Well, let's take a look at this comic. It seems like there is missed understanding. Well, there is misunderstanding here, and I hope that this doesn't happen to you. I'm going to present some tips for maximizing the potential of your relationship with your supervisor. Well, first of all, make good use of your lab rotations. Well, these are your opportunities to get a taste of different research areas, different vibes in each lab, and get to know your potential supervisors. As working with them for a period of time and talking to others in the lab will give you a sense of what to expect and whether or not this PI is well suited to your needs. And once you decided on a supervisor, meet with them regularly. It's important to establish a supervision plan for you to make regular progress. And I think it's also important to communicate clearly. Say if you disagree with your supervisor, state your concerns clearly and calmly. And if you feel something is not with your relationship is not working well, discuss it with them as soon as possible to keep your studies on track. While last, take initiatives. Although your supervisor is there to assist you, you are the one who's responsible for your own research ideas and progress. So when you have meetings, come prepared with questions, ideas, and requests. This helps you to keep track of your own progress. Next, we have work-life balance. Okay. Work-life balance may not be one of your priorities because you're probably focused on your coursework, your comprehensive exams, your own research, which takes a lot of reading, data gathering, and writing. They all need your time, right? What about your recreations, your downtime, your hobbies? Are you going to end up like this lady doing Netflix and write? I think you may be wondering whether work-life balance is even possible, right? While it is, it does require a lot of effort, and you need to develop good habits and strategies to help you achieve. And it can increase your mental well-being and help you survive your PhD. So let's take a look at some suggestions here. Well, first one is arrange your priority. We know that all of us have 24 hours a day, right? And how you use your time is completely up to you. And you have to know what your priorities are and know when you're most productive. Well, for example, I have come to realize that I usually need 7 to 8 hours of sleep in order to function well the next day. And I know that some people only need 4 to 5 hours, which I think is completely unfair. But I've learned to accept this fact, and this is how I function, and this is how my body works. So having enough time to sleep is one of my priorities because it's important to me. And second, examine your approach to work and life from time to time. Well, there may be times you're feeling exhausted or just feeling really negative about your work. It is helpful to ask the following questions. For example, am I devoting enough of my time to relaxing and recharging my batteries? Do I engage in a relaxing hobby to take my mind off from my PhD project? Or how much time do I devote to seeing friends and family during the week? Well, these questions will help you determine whether you're taking too little time to relax. And last but not least, practice self-care with exclamation mark because it's really important. Well, it doesn't really matter what you do. You can go for walks, you can listen to your favorite song, you can practice breathing exercises or writing in journals, but make sure you take time each day to switch off from work. Well, giving yourself some time to take breaks and enjoy other parts of your life is an investment in yourself and your personal well-being. Or think of it as running a marathon, right? You don't want to get burned out early in the race. You need to pace yourself and keep your physical and mental well-being at an optimal level. And let's take a look at the next one, self-doubt. Okay, self-doubt is very, very common in the academic world. Let's take a look at this comic here, right? Well, whichever level or whichever position you're in, you may still experience self-doubt and think that others are better than you. And you may feel like you don't belong in your position or you're not good enough, and you doubt that whether you get what it takes to finish your research and getting that degree. Or it is really important to realize that you're not alone and the inadequacy you feel isn't real. So let's take a look at some tips on dealing with self-doubt. Well, the first way is to ask yourself if you're seeing the full picture. Well, I'm sure many of you are on either Facebook or Instagram or one of the social networks, right? And I wonder if you post all your pictures on your cell phone on Facebook? Probably not. What you post on Facebook is selected, right? So when you see someone else's accomplishment, it's just like seeing what you get to see on Facebook. You only see the highlights of everyone's lives. And you don't see the years of effort, you don't see the false starts, you see the highlights, not the reality. And second, look back at your own previous accomplishments as well. Well, you got into your PhD program because you're the best. You got high marks in the past. You have your research experiences. You presented in conferences. You've accomplished so much. So look back at it and reflect on it. It will give you the confidence to keep going. Well, third, shift your view on perfectionism. Well, perfectionism is in fact quite prevalent among PhD students. You find yourself constantly comparing yourself to others around you or trying to be better than others. So there is always this constant pressure to achieve. Well, what you can do is try to adjust your mindset. You don't always have to be the number one or be better than others. You can try to appreciate others' achievement, yet still validate your own accomplishments. Accept that you're not perfect and that you can set your own goal and work towards it. Last, keep moving forward. Well, there are going to be times when you don't feel like you're making progress, or it all just simply feels overwhelming. And remember that it's a normal part of this process. And during stressful moments, it is important to learn how to be in tune with your own body so that you can manage your stress before it leads to something serious. So how do you assess your mental health needs? And when do you know you require outside help? We're going to get to that next. So the following are 4 areas you can assess yourself in. The first one is be aware of your own emotions. You may be feeling really low or helpless without good reason. You may see extreme changes in your emotions, for example, overly excited or extreme fear, and they persist for a period of time. Second is your cognition. So you may be feeling useless or losing control, and you may not be able to think clearly, or losing touch with reality is also a possible reaction. And sometimes people may have suicidal ideation. Behaviors, that's when we look at changes. For example, changes in eating, sleeping patterns, changes in quality of work, and you may not be functioning well in your day-to-day life. Also, we want to look at relationships. You may be withdrawing from people, even with your best friends and close family members, and you may not be interested in social activities as you used to. So these are all signs you need to be aware of. And I think the first step is your awareness, but don't panic. And you can try to cope with your usual coping strategies first. But if your concerns persist for over 2 weeks and using your own usual strategies don't work, or some of the reactions even get worse, then we'll recommend that you seek help. Can see counselors or can see a doctor. All right, so next I'll get to some of the resources at Academia Sinica here. And the first one is our counseling center. All right, we offer free individual and group counseling services. And we also have psychoeducation lectures from time to time. And on the left-hand side, you see a QR code that leads to our website. You can find more detailed information on our website there. And we now have 2 full-time counselors, Ms. Maylin Fong and myself. And you can reach us through the consultation hotline or through email with any questions or concerns. And what you see next are some of the pictures in our counseling center, some of our spaces. And we're located on the second floor of the TIGP building. All right, so other than our counseling center, if you need to see a doctor, we also have the infirmary at Academia Sinica. They have family doctors available, and they also offer psychiatric services. If you need the information, you can search on the Academia Sinica website. It's under the Department of General Affairs. And also, well, every one of you is affiliated with a university, right? So if you think that it's more convenient for you to seek support or services at your university campus, you can also look for student counseling center. Usually every university campus will have a counseling center that offer free counseling service as well. Okay, so next, in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about sexual harassment prevention in Academia Sinica, because what constitutes sexual harassment is often unclear and inconsistent across cultures. So I'm going to inform you some of the sexual harassment related regulations in Taiwan. First is what really constitutes sexual harassment. Here are some examples. The first one is unwanted flirting, which is when you make sexual advances and the other party tells you to stop or says no, then it's unwanted, right? The second one, catcalling, it is when an individual whistles or makes sexual comments towards another individual. For example, calling a female colleague nice legs, you may think is a compliment, but it's a sexual comment, especially when she's uncomfortable. It is considered sexual harassment. And cases like this have happened in the past. So please be aware, you can make compliments on others' work, not on their looks. And touching without consent, it's a matter of respect, and it's also a matter of cultural differences as well. What may be considered appropriate physical contact in your country may be considered unwanted action here or by another individual. So please also be aware. Sexual favors, for example, requests for sexual favors in the workplace to keep your job or receive a promotion, it's not okay, right? Also showing inappropriate pictures or posters, sharing messages or images that have sexual contacts or were meant to be private. So basically, sexual harassment is attention or action that are not wanted and make someone feel bad. At Academia Sinica, in Taiwan, well, these are the legal regime governing sexual harassment in Taiwan. Gender Equality in Employment Act, Gender Equality in Education Act, and Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. Well, based on these laws, government agencies, companies, and schools are required to set up committees and rules on sexual harassment, as well as channels for reporting violations. So in Academia Sinica, you can find such information in our Department of Personnel. You can find relevant regulations here, internet resources, and most importantly, sexual harassment complaint helpline. So if you do encounter such incident, you can file a complaint. You can either call or email the Department of Personnel. And once a formal complaint is filed, it will initiate an investigation process. It will be reviewed and investigated by a complaint committee called Sexual Harassment Complaint Handling and Investigation Committee. They'll go through a vigorous and confidential process to resolve the complaint. So that ends my talk today, and to conclude, whatever difficulties you may encounter, there is support available. So we have our TIGP staff members, you have your program assistant, classmates, lab mates, supervisors, And we also have counselors and doctors available. And when you're in need of support, you're not alone, and we'll support you through your PhD journey. And if you have any questions regarding today's talk, you can fill out your answer at the end of the event today at the checkout link, and we'll compile the questions together. And thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you all the best in your studies.